Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, out on another walk. This is a continuation. This is actually part 4 of our walks on the New Forest, looking at targets from the Second World War. These are aeroplane targets. But before that, if you've watched the other 3, you'll know that we're taking a stroll looking at these things, but we have just come through some terrific woodland. We've been out sort of on the heath, but now we've been out on the woodland, passing oak trees. We've passed some birch and hawthorn, lots of holly, various things, even some sloes. I'm joined today by Dave Ford. Hello, Dave.
Hello there, Hank.
Here's my guide, my expert guide. You live round here.
I do, yeah.
And
yeah.
this is
I
your...
about expert.
But we've just got some very noisy aeroplanes going overhead, which is quite apt, really, for the reason that we're here. There would have been aeroplane noises going on overhead, but for a specific purpose. And what was that purpose?
Well, basically, it was a bombing range, Richard, in a nutshell.
Yes.
And we've been looking at the various little bits of evidence to show where some of the targets and what have you were there.
But and we're on our way to what's something called the submarine pen.
Well, it's known as a submarine pen, yeah.
But it's nothing to do with submarines.
No. I'll explain that when we
get
there.
But before that, we have every now and again we come across little anomalies, and this is a curiosity that most people will probably think is a gravestone unless they actually read the details or look it up. Let's go over and have a look at it.
We've passed through a little bit of woodland that was called Pitt's Wood, which at one time had one of the best collections of oak trees in the forest. There's still quite a few oak trees here, but in 1968 they decided to start chopping them down. So unfortunately that only lasted for about 12 months. But this is, so it's called the Pitt's Wood enclosure. Named after one-time surveyor John Pitt at the time.
Right.
An enclosure was created in 1775, and what we've got here, Richard, is it's quite an unusual, I suppose, sign. Looks like a gravestone.
Yes, it's made of cast iron, isn't it?
Yeah, it is an iron plate erected. I think it says on there by a chap called the Honourable Gerald Lascelles, who was deputy surveyor of the New Forest at the time. And basically what he did, he put these plates down whenever he re-enclosed on any of the statutory enclosures under the New Forest Act 1877. There's only about 6 of these in the forest, because at the time that he was the head, there wasn't a lot of enclosures going on.
Yes.
I'll just tell you what the difference between, I'm reading this, I apologise, I want to make sure I get this
right. No, that's
the
fine.
difference between an enclosure and an enclosure. So an enclosure is a term used to denote plantations made under the various New Forest Acts 1698 to 1949 on land over which the rights of the commoners are temporarily suspended while the trees are growing.
Oh, I see.
An enclosure with an E basically means any other enclosed space, such as a private field or an ancient
which is more permanent,
yeah.
presumably. Although waiting for trees to grow, as we know, trees can grow over, say, 100 years or so.
I mean, we've seen some lovely oaks here. You can just see to our right where they've cut the oaks down and they're replanted with spruce and Douglas fir and some Corsican pines, which wouldn't have been normally native to the original New Forest. But it's something slightly different on our way through.
On our way through to our first target of this video, which is something, as you said before, the submarine pen, but nothing actually to do with submarines. Why is it called the submarine pen, do you suppose?
For many years after the war, the locals thought that it was a building designed to look like a German U-boat pen.
Right.
And it probably did look like a submarine pen, but in fact a chap did some research only as recently, about 10 years ago, up at the Ministry of Defence in London, and found some paperwork that proved that in fact the building was designed specifically just to test the effectiveness of air raid shelters.
Oh, I see.
Not very exciting. I prefer the submarine story myself.
But it was so effective.
Yeah, as we'll see in a minute. As we pass by here, I'll just point out, you probably won't see anything, but there is a slight indentation in the ground here. It's become overgrown with, little bits of vegetation. I'll just point it out at this stage, but I'll tell you more about it when we get to the submarine pen bit.
Okay, so it's something there that we just
I shall
making a
leave you
mental
in
note.
suspense, yeah.
Yes, we're coming through lots of gorse and heather here, which is very pleasant, I have to say,
Yeah.
on this
So-
delightful day.
As we come to the top of this hill, I'm going to point out this little, looks like a mound.
Oh yes, it just looks like another little
Yeah.
hillock, but
Well,
you might not give that the time of day like so many of these
Yeah.
relics that we've been looking at. Unless you
Well-
know, you probably not think anything of it.
No. Well, underneath there is this very substantial building made entirely of reinforced concrete. It was about 80 foot wide, 70 foot long. It was 12 foot high. The roof was 6 foot thick,
Wow.
and the walls were 3 foot thick. And I say it was used as target practice, so they did actually try and bomb it.
From the air.
Yeah, it was so indestructible that after the war, rather than try and take it apart, it was easier just to bury it, and that's what they did. They
And
just
that's what they
buried
did.
it, and there it has remained ever since. We should be able to go up and walk on top of it.
Oh well, I think that's got to be done, hasn't it?
It actually had really gone back to nature with some little trees and what have you on it, but about 6 years ago some university students and an archaeological society came along and they wanted to do some research using their geophys. So they stripped everything off it. I think they thought there was a myth that there was something else buried underneath it. But they found nothing, and now they've left it to go back to
Oh, and there is a path, I
There is
notice.
a bit of a path.
I'll follow you through the bracken and more gorse, and we're climbing up what would ordinarily feel like just a natural hill, or even a burial mound, you know, a very large burial mound it would have to be. And yet,
See here, Richard.
yes, look at
The
that.
top of the
Yeah.
building beginning to poke through. You've had 70, 75 years of weathering.
Gosh, there is concrete. We climb up here and you've got a step, a bit more concrete, you know.
And again, a little bit more of the roof beginning to poke through.
You really have to know that that's what you're on, because if you blink and you would miss it. But from up here,
Well, this is
let me just say, we get quite a nice view looking across the New Forest towards the west, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'll just pick out some landmarks. Where we are now, the town of Ringwood would be over in that direction.
So we're looking towards Ringwood now.
Yeah, we might just be, yes, you can just about make out in the distance the far horizon where the sort of sky ends and the land starts. That's the Jurassic coast over there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Gosh.
So we're not that far from the sea. I mean, Bournemouth would be about, I don't know, 15 miles away. But from here, I point out quite a few little interesting little snippets. You'll see over to our left, Richard, what looks like a pond.
Oh yes, I was looking at that just now.
That's a crater that was left by a bomb called a Tallboy. A Tallboy was a 12,000 pound bomb. Only 6 of those were ever dropped live on the range. But if you think that was big, remember when I said look out for this little indentation?
Yes,
over
on the
there?
way up just a few
Well,
minutes
that was
ago.
a crater that was left by a bomb called the Grand Slam. And if I may, if I can just read a couple of
course.
paragraphs from an article that was written about the area here. As I said, Tallboys, they were first used in June 1944, just after D-Day. In fact, I think it was a Tallboy bomb that sunk the Tirpitz, which was the pride of the German fleet. Anyway, their big brother was the 22,000 pound Grand Slam, and that only became available in March 1945. Only one live bomb was ever tested on the range on March the 13th, 1945. The surrounding villagers were advised to keep their windows open.
Open?
Yeah.
To absorb the blast?
Yeah, and as the specially modified Lancaster dropped its bomb about 16,000 feet above us. Its designer was a chap called Dr. Barnes Wallis.
Yes.
He was here, plus many other dignitaries, and they watched this bomb fall. As it impacted, he started counting, and at 9 seconds the ground erupted. The blast was minimal, but local inhabitants actually felt the vibrations, and it was known for a while as the earthquake bomb.
Gosh.
But it produced this enormous crater just over there. It was about 130 foot wide and 70 foot deep.
Heavens.
It was so big that that's one of the few craters they decided to fill in.
Oh, I
after the war.
see. So there's only that slight
Yeah.
indentation now that you pointed out.
So the following day, a single Lancaster of 617 Squadron then dropped a Grand Slam alongside the Bielefeld viaduct that carried the main railway line from northern Germany to the industrial Ruhr. It was an important target that had been attacked many times, and the valley was well cratered, but this one bomb totally vindicated Barnes Wallis's proposal of 1940 that had had such little support at the time. That one Grand Slam brought down 7 arches of each of that viaduct.
Gosh.
But it just shows how things was changing so quickly at the time. They tested the one live bomb once, and the next day it was used in the war. That Grand Slam bomb, that is the biggest bomb ever to have been dropped in UK mainland, and let's hope that's a record that never gets
broken. Quite.
But it was a big baby. The bomb itself was about 25 foot long.
Wow.
And they talk about a specially modified Lancaster. They had to take out all of the turrets and all of the special armour plating to make the plane as light as possible to get it off the ground.
Gosh.
In fact, I think they only just managed to take off. There's only a few yards of runway left.
It's absolutely fascinating, and I mean, I think this is the thing that makes it fascinating, is the fact that there's nothing to see as such, and yet there is. You know, it's here.
Yeah.
When you know what you're looking for, you can stand there and be in awe, and the evidence is here, but you just have to have that little bit of knowledge. Dave, thank you so much.
Not at all.
It's been absolutely brilliant, and don't forget, join me again on another exploration when I shall take you somewhere else. But thank you for that on the New Forest. Until the next time, bye for now.